What's up, everyone? Monster Master Godzilla here, and I'm back, finally continuing the Godzilla-Thon. We're now up to Godzilla vs. Gigan, also known as Godzilla on Monster Island, which is so weird because it's only a few seconds of the movie took place on Monster Island. It's like calling Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones in Shanghai, or like Star-Lord on Earth for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, to be exact. So, anyway, this one is another one. This one is still during the time when Godzilla was still being, evolved into a superhero. And, 1972. And this one tries to be more of a... This time they did not have any kids in this film, but tries to be a little more grounded, but still but it has a hard time trying to balance it out with the kids and adults thing. But the human characters can be considered forgettable in some cases. So yeah, what I have here, my figures here are Godzilla 1968 to 72. And my Gigan 72 figure, which Gigan, of course, is like the new main villain of the film. Which, as you can see, he's this creature I don't know what he is, like a giant space chicken, like half like a cyborg or something with a buzzsaw belly and chest. And so anyway. There was this guy who was like a comic strip, and he tries to sell it. He tries selling it to a newspaper to make a comic strip, and then then the journalist ends up learning about a children's theme park, and it's all giant monster themed, and it has a statue that resembles Godzilla. But it turns out the people who were running the park were the chairman was revealed to be. It turns out the people that were involved in the park were actually aliens. Which are Space Hunter Nebula M, and they plot to take over the world. And the film, it does take a while to get started. And there's barely any monster action until 45 minutes in. I mean, once it starts happening, the two jewels from outer space, revealing King Ghidorah and Gigan. Yes, that's right, King Ghidorah is back in this one. And you're wondering, if you're wondering, how is King Ghidorah still alive after he was killed in an earlier film in the Showa series? I mean, listen, folks. If you paid attention to what happened in Destroy All Monsters, it took place in the future, which is in the year 1999. Which during the time, 1999 was the future once during the time. So in this film, which came out in 1972, you can assume it's back in the present time before King Ghidorah was killed. So Gigan and King Ghidorah were all causing rampage, and they were destroying stuff. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention, they did have a lot of stock footage, which consist in the ones from Destroy All Monsters and Son of Godzilla, which the reason, and also Godzilla's Revenge, you don't see Manila anymore after that, after Godzilla's Revenge, probably because he was quite an abomination of Godzilla's son, quite an embarrassment to the franchise, and which we'll talk about why. We'll talk about why in a while after we get past the Showa series. And now and also there are some scenes that they kind of were lazy. They used stock footage from Ghidorah the three-headed monster, even when the lighting doesn't match. Especially when some scenes in Ghidorah the three-headed monster took place in the day, and the lighting don't match, which is very weird. When they went switching off from night, day, most of the movie took place at night during the final confrontation, especially during the battle. It took place at night. And also, when you get to see Godzilla and Godzilla, this time he's not alone in this film. This time he brought Anguirus, which, you remember how he was Godzilla's first enemy in Godzilla Raids Again? Well, in this one, Anguirus became Godzilla's sidekick. Yes, that's right, folks. This is the move. This is where, this is where Anguirus, ever since Straw Monsters, Anguirus became very famous as being Godzilla's most trusted ally. He's like his best friend. So yeah, I think of him as the sidekick more than just the enemy. I associated Anguirus as being a sidekick, which I could have wished that he was in more movies, because he gets pushed aside a lot. And I mean, maybe in the MonsterVerse, I would love to see an awesome, badass attempt of Anguirus. Maybe remake Godzilla Raids Again in the MonsterVerse. So anyway, Anguirus comes around, and they had the weirdest thing in the whole movie that felt out of place. In the English dub, the monsters, Godzilla and Anguirus, start talking. Like, hey, Anguirus, something funny going on. You better check. Okay. And it's Anguirus, come on, there's a lot of trouble ahead. Which, that felt out of place. And if you get the uncut Japanese version, you don't hear them speak at all. Which, I thought that was like out of place. It felt like very cartoonish to have Godzilla actually talk. I wonder what idiot for the English dub version decided they actually can talk. So anyway, Godzilla and Anguirus finally showed up when Ghidorah and Gigan were causing mayhem. So then after that, Godzilla battles King Ghidorah and Gigan. King Ghidorah really didn't do much in this one, surprisingly. Gigan did most of the work in the film. And in addition, even though King Ghidorah is known to be Godzilla's archenemy, they had Gigan do most of the work because, since Gigan's the main villain of the film, and he is the main villain of the film, so they call it Godzilla. That's why it's titled Godzilla vs. Gigan. And so Gigan did most of the work. Well, Godzilla's battling Gigan, and Anguirus is fighting King Ghidorah, mostly. And during the battle, Gigan gave Godzilla quite a challenge. Like, you see him, he's always ugh. And then tries getting up, and then ugh. And also, for the first time, Gigan is the first monster to actually make Godzilla bleed. The 70s were violent for Godzilla movies that were marketing towards kids, which, especially when he evolved into a superhero. Which, that's quite interesting. That's quite surprised they got away with it, with gratuitous bloodshed and swearing, especially for Godzilla movie targeted towards kids. Which, that's not Godzilla to me, because Godzilla's not really a kid-friendly character. I mean, sure, kids can watch him, but he's not really aimed for kids. Especially since he was once a force of nature, a symbol of nuclear destruction. But I understand this is the 70s, and they wanted to wanted kids to enjoy. So anyway, after Godzilla gets knocked out a couple of times by Gigan, Godzilla gets shot at by a Godzilla laser, by a statue of the Godzilla Tower, and then after that the Gigan like ends up beating him up, and after that Godzilla gets knocked out unconsciously, and then Gigan drags Godzilla and has him knocked out on the ground, and then kicks Godzilla, sends him flying, and then after he lands on the Godzilla Tower, Godzilla ends up getting his strength back. And when he got his strength back, you see when he does this, you can see the suit start falling apart during the production. Yes, that's right. The 1968 Godzilla suit has been used in so many films, you can actually see it falling apart. And during the battle, the famous Godzilla roar started acting really weird. And it sounded like someone's been scratching a record player. Like, wow, 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 wow. Like, I don't know what kind of drugs were they thinking when they came up with that idea. So Godzilla finally beats the crap out of Gigan after he finally got his strength back. And both King Ghidorah, and then after the battle, so they battle King Ghidorah and Gigan, and both King Ghidorah and Gigan finally retreat. And Godzilla and Anguirus looked at Gigan, looked at the two flying away, saying, "We'll be back. We'll be waiting for you guys." Like saying, "We'll be ready for your return, pal." Because especially after Gigan and Godzilla, especially since Gigan and King Ghidorah decided to retreat, and like saying, "This isn't the last you see of us. We shall return." So Godzilla and Anguirus end up going back to Monster Island, and as they were swimming away, human characters yelled "Goodbye, goodbye," which is kind of a tradition in the later movies of the Showa series. Well, from Godzilla vs. Gigan to Godzilla vs. Megalon, that becomes the tradition to when Godzilla was a superhero at that time. So then it comes off with a very awesome way of ending, where as shows Godzilla and showing Godzilla and Anguirus like swimming away back to Monster Island. And that was a good ending. So, would I recommend this movie? This is definitely one of the better movies in the Showa series. I mean, not one of my favorite movies, but not one of my favorites of the Showa series, but it's still a fun watch. I mean, what makes it worth watching is the fight scenes. I mean, and Gigan is the best part of the film, especially that he's a unique monster. Because like, look at him. Look at him. He's like a giant space chicken with the metal hooks for has metal hooks for hands, like blades on it for toes, a buzzsaw running up to his chest and belly, and he can fly, and has the infrared sensor beam right here, which a lot of people say they could shoot lasers from there. And that's pretty much it for this movie. So, would I truly recommend it? Well, yes, I do. It's definitely one of the better Godzilla movies in the Showa series. And that's all I have to say, folks. And as always, stay awesome, my Monster Masters, and I'll catch you later. And stay tuned for more. Next, we'll be doing Godzilla vs. Megalon. And that's all I have to say, folks. And as always, stay awesome, folks. Goodbye.